What's your rank, sweetheart? Coffee maker first class? The words sliced through the air of conference room Delta, like a blade dipped in cheap cologne and expensive arrogance. Colonel Bradley Hutchinson stood at the head of the polished oak table, his dress blues so crisp they could cut paper, his chest heavy with ribbons that sparkled under the fluorescent lights. The smell of his cologne, something woody and over-applied, mixed with the sterile air conditioning that hummed through the Pentagon's sub-level. His teeth were too white, his smile too wide, and his eyes scanned the room like a predator seeking validation from the pack. Around the table, 12 mid-level officers, majors, lieutenant colonels. A few captains brought in for strategic briefing, shifted in their seats. Some smirked. Others looked down at their tablets. The kind of uncomfortable laughter that comes when someone with power says something cruel, and you're not sure if participating will advance your career or end it. The woman standing near the back wall didn't flinch. She wore navy blue coveralls, the kind motor pool mechanics wore when elbowed deep in a Humvee engine. No name tape, no rank insignia. Her hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, dark with strands of gray that caught the light. She held a tablet in one hand, fingers resting on it with the kind of stillness that comes from muscle memory, not nervousness. Her boots were scuffed but clean. Her posture was neutral, weight evenly distributed, knees slightly bent. Anyone with close quarters battle training would recognize it immediately. CQB stance, ready position. She breathed in for 4 counts, held for 4, released for 4. Colonel Hutchinson took a step closer, his polished shoes clicking against the tile floor. I'm serious. We've got a high-level briefing in 10 minutes and I've got some janitor standing in my war room. Who let you in here? Did you get lost looking for the supply closet? A few chuckles rippled through the room. Nervous, tentative, but not everyone laughed. At the far corner of the table, near the wall-mounted screen still displaying satellite imagery of contested zones in the Levant, sat Chief Warrant Officer Ramon Delgado, 62 years old, 38 years of service, face like carved mahogany, hands that had held everything from M16s in Mogadishu to encrypted sat phones in Kabul. He didn't laugh. He didn't even smile. His eyes were locked on the woman. He watched the way she held the tablet, index finger resting along the edge, not gripping. The way someone holds a pistol when they've fired 10,000 rounds and don't need to think about trigger discipline anymore. He watched her breathing pattern, slow and controlled, the kind they drilled into you at Fort Bragg for hostage rescue scenarios. He saw the faint line along her right forearm, where her sleeve had ridden up half an inch, the edge of something dark beneath. Ink, military ink. His stomach dropped. Colonel Hutchinson was still talking, his voice rising with performative indignation. No, seriously, someone check her clearance. This is a closed briefing. We've got SIGINT data, drone corridors, rules of engagement protocols. This is 06 level clearance minimum. And we've got, he gestured at her with a lazy wave of his hand, the kind of dismissive motion you'd use to shoo a fly. Whatever this is. The woman's eyes were gray, slate gray, the kind of gray that didn't reflect light, that absorbed it. She met his gaze without blinking, and for just a moment, Hutchinson's smile faltered, just a flicker. Then he recovered, turning to his audience again, playing to the crowd. I mean, look at her. She probably thinks DFAC stands for definitely eat all carbs. More laughter, louder this time. Emboldened. Chief Delgado's hand tightened around his coffee cup. His knuckles went pale. He knew that look in her eyes. He'd seen it before, 15 years ago, in a forward operating base outside Kandahar. A woman with no name had walked into their compound at 0:30, covered in dust and blood that wasn't hers, carrying nothing but a suppressed MK-18 and a satellite phone. She'd stayed 4 hours, coordinated an extraction for a captured CIA operative, and disappeared into the mountains before sunrise. The base commander had asked her name. She'd smiled, the same way this woman was almost smiling now, and said, "You don't have clearance for that." Delgado leaned forward slightly, his voice low, directed at the major sitting next to him. "Stop him." The major blinked. "What?" "Stop him right now." But Hutchinson was on a roll. He crossed his arms over his chest, metals clinking softly. "You know what? I'm feeling generous today. I'll give you a choice. You can leave quietly right now, and I won't report this breach. Or you can tell me who you are, and I'll personally escort you to whatever broom closet you crawled out of." The room had gone quieter now. The laughter had faded. There was a tension building, the kind that precedes lightning. The woman tilted her head slightly, the movement economical, precise. "You want my rank?" Her voice was low, calm. The kind of calm that comes after you've been shot at by 12 different militaries and lived to write the after-action reports that no one will ever read. Hutchinson grinned. "Yeah, sweetheart. Humor me." She glanced down at the tablet in her hand, then back up at him. 4 counts in, 4 counts hold, 4 counts out. Black Ops Director. The words landed like a flashbang in a closed room. Silence. Total suffocating silence. Hutchinson blinked. His grin stayed frozen on his face, but his eyes narrowed. "What?" She didn't repeat herself. She didn't need to. The door to the conference room opened. 3 men entered. The first was a 2-star general, Daniel Kraus, Deputy Director of Strategic Operations. The second was a broad-shouldered man in a dark suit with an earpiece, Secret Service or DSS, hard to tell. The third was older, silver-haired, wearing a simple gray suit with an American flag pin on the lapel. Undersecretary of Defense for Intelligence and Security. All 3 walked past Colonel Hutchinson without a glance. All 3 stopped in front of the woman in coveralls. General Kraus snapped to attention and saluted. "Ma'am, apologies for the delay. We've got the updated threat matrix from Sigonella and the Kurdish corridor. The secretary is waiting on your assessment." The undersecretary nodded to her, his expression unreadable. "Good to see you, Director. We weren't expecting you to attend in person." She returned the salute with the kind of casual precision that comes from decades of service, then lowered her hand. "I was in the area. Thought I'd sit in." Her eyes flicked to Hutchinson for half a second. No malice, no triumph. Just acknowledgement. The way you'd glance at a pothole you'd stepped around. The color drained from Hutchinson's face. Not slowly. All at once. Like someone had opened a valve and let it all pour out. His mouth opened, then closed. His hands, which had been so confident moments before, trembled slightly. He looked around the table, searching for allies, for context, for anything that made sense. Chief Delgado didn't move, didn't blink. He just watched. One of the captains, a young woman with intel specialty tags, had her hand over her mouth. A major 2 seats down was staring at his tablet like it held the answers to the universe. No one met Hutchinson's eyes. General Kraus finally seemed to notice him. "Colonel Hutchinson, why are you still here?" Hutchinson stammered. Sir, I was told to lead the briefing on—" "You were told to provide logistics overview," Kraus interrupted, his tone flat and cold as a morgue slab. "That portion of the briefing was postponed. You're dismissed." "But Dismissed, Colonel." The word hung in the air like a guillotine blade. Hutchinson's jaw worked soundlessly. He looked at the woman one more time, and this time she met his gaze fully. There was no anger there, no satisfaction, just a tired, patient sort of inevitability. The look of someone who had seen this scene play out 1,000 times, in 1,000 different rooms, with 1,000 different men who thought volume and ribbons equaled respect. He turned and walked toward the door, his polished shoes clicking unevenly now, his gait stiff. The door closed behind him with a soft hiss. No one spoke for a long moment. Then the undersecretary gestured to the head of the table. "Director, if you'd like to take the lead." She nodded and walked to the front of the room, setting her tablet down on the table. As she moved, her sleeve rode up just slightly, and Chief Delgado saw it clearly now. A tattoo on her forearm. A black hawk in flight, wings spread, talons extended, with a single word beneath it in stencil font. Nightfall. He'd heard rumors about Nightfall. Everyone had. The unit that didn't exist. The operations that never happened. The men and women who walked into hostile territory with no backup, no air support, and no margin for error, and walked back out with intelligence that shifted the entire theater. And she'd been standing there in coveralls, holding a tablet, while a colonel with an ego problem tried to score cheap laughs. Delgado exhaled slowly and sat back in his chair. The director pulled up a screen showing real-time drone footage over a mountainous region. Her voice was calm, methodical. "We've identified 3 HVTs operating in a decentralized network across the northern corridor. Signals intelligence indicates they're planning coordinated strikes on NATO supply lines within the next 72 hours. Rules of engagement are still under review, But we've got assets in position for direct action if the secretary gives the green light. The room listened in absolute silence. She continued, outlining strike packages, extraction routes, collateral damage estimates, all delivered in the same even tone she'd used to tell Hutchinson her rank. No theatrics, no bravado, just competence. Deadly, unshakable competence. If you've ever been underestimated by someone who thought they were better than you, hit that like button and subscribe right now. You won't believe what happens next. 40 minutes later, the briefing concluded. The undersecretary thanked her. Kraus saluted again and the room began to empty. Officers filed out quietly, some stealing glances at her as they passed, others keeping their eyes down. Chief Delgado waited until the room was almost empty, then approached her. "Ma'am," he said quietly. She looked up from her tablet. Recognition flickered in her eyes. "Chief Delgado, Kandahar, 2009. He nodded. "You remember?" "I remember everyone who didn't ask stupid questions." A faint smile touched his weathered face. "That colonel will be fine," she said simply. "He'll get a letter in his file, maybe a reassignment, maybe he'll learn something." She paused. "Probably not." Delgado chuckled softly. "For what it's worth, ma'am, some of us knew." "I know." He nodded once more, then left. She stood alone in the conference room, the hum of the fluorescent lights the only sound. She looked down at her tablet. A new message had appeared, encrypted, sender unknown. She opened it. "Nightfall 6. Package delivered. Tower 4 sends regards. New tasking inbound. Wheels up 2200 HR's Kabul station." She closed the message and picked up her tablet. Outside the Pentagon, the late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the parking lot. She walked past rows of sedans and SUVs, past officers in dress uniforms and contractors in business casual, until she reached an unmarked gray sedan parked in a distant corner. She slid into the driver's seat, started the engine, and pulled out onto the highway. Behind her, in Conference Room Delta, the lights automatically dimmed. The war went on. It always did. And the people who fought it in the shadows, the ones without name tapes or press conferences or medals they could wear in public, kept moving forward. Not for glory, not for recognition, because someone had to. Somewhere over the Atlantic, a cargo plane was being prepped. Somewhere in the Hindu Kush, an asset was waiting for extraction. Somewhere in a basement in Langley, an analyst was connecting dots that would save 100 lives or end a dozen, and she would be there. Not because she wanted to be, because she was built for it. The director merged onto I-395, heading south, her mind already running through mission parameters, asset lists, contingency plans. The coveralls were gone now, replaced mentally by plate carrier and suppressed rifle. The persona shed like snakeskin. She thought briefly about Colonel Hutchinson, wondered if he'd lose sleep tonight, wondered if he'd realize how close he'd come to something he didn't understand. Probably not. Men like him never did, but men like Chief Delgado, the quiet ones who watched and listened and knew the difference between a warrior and a politician in uniform, they understood, and that was enough. Her phone buzzed. Another message, confirming arrival. Asset secure. "Awaiting your signal." She typed back with one hand, eyes on the road. "Inbound, maintain posture." The reply was instant. "Copy. Nightfall actual." She set the phone down and drove. The sky ahead was darkening, stars just beginning to emerge. In 12 hours, she'd be on another continent. In 24, she'd be in another war. But right now, in this moment, she was just a woman in a car on a highway, driving toward something most people would never see and could never understand. Every soldier carries a story that few ever hear. Listen with your heart. Thank you for staying and watching. Subscribe to Beyond the Rank for more.